The idea behind uCommerce is we want to solve two basic problems out there. We want to bring the world of content and the world of commerce together into a single platform. That's the first thing, and we want to do it in a seamless manner so the CMS and the commerce platform work together to solve the common challenge of selling things online. The second thing is the way that we go about building the software. We realized very early on that every e-commerce project is different. So every customer, even if they're selling the same thing online, has very different ideas of how to go about doing business. And so the other thing that makes uCommerce what it is the way that it's architected, the way we put together the software. The idea is basically that we want to avoid trying to be everything for everybody. Rather than doing that, we want to be open so you guys can go in and change the way uCommerce acts and behaves. We call it Framework First, and I'm going to talk about it in a little bit. Before we get into that, let me just talk about the core features of uCommerce. The idea is basically that if I can switch my slide, there we go. The idea is we want to cover the wide spectrum of what you would expect from e-commerce today. So a classic e-commerce solution today will tend to deal with many products, hundreds of thousands of items. It tends to deal with multiple sales channels in omni-channel or cross-channel situations where you may have online and offline sales channels in combination. That's what all this multi-channel stuff is. Basically the ability to sell in multiple stores but maintain them in the same central solution. Catalog management is sort of an addition to that, where you can slice and dice your product ranges to make it fit with your customer segments or the different markets that you're addressing. And of course, sitting underneath all that is the product information management system, which I'm also going to talk about some of the new things today when we get into the demo, among which is improved capabilities for dealing with fields and inheritance of set fields. Search here is a big one. Umbraco, of course, has its own search capability, but we added our own one in there because we needed additional capabilities, specifically faceted navigation, which is very important for commerce, less so for content. So there are actually two search engines that you will be dealing with in a uCommerce solution. On the web content management side, this is where we bring the two worlds together. The idea is to create seamless integration between Umbraco and uCommerce as platforms, so much so that you can't see the difference between the two. Social commerce is all about engaging with customers on the website itself, on the store. So a popular way of putting it is saying that we want to get existing customers to help sell to new customers by generating content like reviews, ratings, things like that augments existing catalog data with very credible information that is not coming from the store itself, but actually the end customers. Order management is all about what happens once the order is placed. The idea here is basically that some companies need simple order management capabilities. They might not need the full SAP ERP system or Axe or Nav or whatever. Sometimes it's just necessary with basic capabilities around fulfillment, and that's basically what we're doing right inside uCommerce. This works for multi-store as well. So if you are dealing with multiple channels in the same solution, basically you can set up permissions to make sure that your store manager in the US will deal only with orders flowing in through that channel. Your store manager in your local brick and mortar store in a given city will only be able to see his own orders, and so on and so forth. Marketing is of course also a key component of what we're talking about. This specifically in uCommerce, we're dealing with merchandising capabilities, so the ability to set up dynamic price rules based on who's logged in, what are people purchasing, what are people purchasing in combination, are we dealing with bundles, things of that nature. So Marketing Foundation is all about that. Again, we've done some extensions to that in later versions that allow for even more configuration options. So I'm going to talk about that as well. And finally, integration, which is the uConnector platform that I'm going to touch on briefly. I'm going to show you just a little bit how to work with it, the problem it solves, so there'll be a little bit more slides towards the end, but this is basically uCommerce. The secret sauce here, of course, is the combination of the CMS and the commerce platform. And one of the things that we can do, and I believe we're the only platform that can actually do that at this point, is we can actually integrate with multiple content management systems. Today we're talking about the integration with Umbraco. That's where we started back in 2008. But today we actually integrate with more than one CMS, so we also deal with Sitecore. The premise is the same. We still want to bring the two worlds of commerce and content together, but we want to do it in multiple content platforms. The beauty here of this model is that uCommerce remains the same across these two content management systems, and in the future, as we add more, the same will be true. Still a seamless integration between the commerce and content platform, but once you learn uCommerce for one platform, you will be familiar with it on other platforms as well, because it is the same core APIs that developers will work with. It's also the same management UIs that end users will work with. So learn it once and use it in multiple channels. That's the basic idea. The second aspect is the flexibility we talked about, the ability to change the way uCommerce works. And we've actually done some improvements to the underlying frameworks to make this even better than what it was in the previous versions. So very briefly, Framework First is all about not trying to solve every problem in e-commerce under the sun out of the box. Rather than doing that, we want to leave the frameworks open for you to work with so you can modify the way the platform works. We cannot anticipate every requirement out there, right? So Framework First is a way to stay lean from a platform perspective, thus giving you guys less things that you need to learn and deal with, and so you can change the things that you need to change. That's Framework First. The business version of this is the little caterpillar here. The idea is that you can change it, you can make it your own, like Play-Doh, right? So build a house, build a caterpillar like I did here. That's the basic idea. Remember, if you have any questions, do let me know in chat, and I'll make sure and touch on it as I go through the demo. But for now, let's take a look at the demo so you can get a sense of what we're talking about here. So what we have here is the demo landing page for uCommerce, and bear that in mind, the demo.ucommerce.net, this is basically where you'll find demos of Umbraco and Sitecore, front and back end. We've just updated these sites, so we will be looking at the latest versions of uCommerce for these individual platforms here today. And so if you want to have a play with it after the fact, you can just log in and have a go at it. Keep in mind, these sites will reset every day at 6 a.m. European Standard Time, so don't create anything you want to keep that will be gone tomorrow. But let's take a look at the front end here. One of the things that we're very focused on in uCommerce is trying to remove barriers getting started with the platform. I come from a consultancy background. I've been in the whole creating solutions for clients game, big and small and all that. And one of the things that I continually had to deal with heading up the teams building these types of solutions was basically that we would bring on new platforms from time to time, and every time there was risk involved because we didn't know the platform. We had to learn it. We had to certify developers. But ultimately, the real learning really started when you got your hands onto the platform and started building things with that. Avenue Clothing here is an attempt to try and remove that barrier, or at least reduce the risk involved in bringing on a new platform. Because Avenue Clothing is a full implementation of an e-commerce store built on top of Umbraco and uCommerce. The idea is that developers looking at this will get an idea of how to do common e-commerce things, right? Like adding to basket like I just did, full checkout flows, credit card payments, all that is covered by Avenue Clothing here, so you can see how everything works. We see partners using this as a foundation for building new solutions. We also see it used as a reference, so you can sort of dive in and see how to do specific things like faceted search or just click through, search, whatever. All of that is covered. Avenue Clothing here is open source, so it means that you can download the code, you can take a look at it, you can work with it. It's released under the MIT open source license, which means you can basically do whatever you want with it. We have a Russian customer that took the site and basically switched out the logo up here, used the same colors, switched out the products, and they're now selling some sort of smoking equipment. I don't know. So it's kind of interesting to see what happens. Another example of a partner that just took this and went with it is an Israeli company that took this and translated the whole thing into Hebrew. So basically moving the menu over here to the right and switching the whole reading direction of text and things like that. It's kind of fun to see. What I would recommend to use Avenue Clothing for is as a reference to see how everything goes together. But do review the solution architecture, see how it fits with the way you like to do solutions, because that was not the goal of Avenue Clothing. The goal was to keep everything simple, easy to follow, and so you can see how all the APIs work. It's built using a responsive approach, as you can see here, now that my browser is tiny. So it will adapt to the size here. It's using to the Bootstrap, so it will be a familiar framework for many of you out there. So that's the front end. Avenue Clothing is a separate package from Umbraco, from uCommerce itself that you install. And so it's optional. You don't have to have it. So what we see is more advanced partners that have been doing sites on uCommerce for a while. They will have their own version of Avenue Clothing or just start from scratch every time because they have a very clear idea of what their solution architecture should be. And so just different approaches for different scenarios. Let's go to the backend so you can see what the integration looks like and see how Avenue Clothing is actually integrated. When we log into Umbraco, we will pre-fill credentials for the backend so you can get in. I believe I've already been logged in. Oh, no. So you can see here I'm filling it out. So this will happen for you too. So you just go in, log in, and that's it to take a look at it. We're looking at Umbraco 7 here. We do have a version of uCommerce that works with older versions of Umbraco. So Umbraco 6, 4, so if you have legacy customers on Umbraco, we do sort of support those as well and will continue to do so for as long as we can. We're looking at Umbraco 7 because that's what basically everybody's using these days. If we start in the content section here, the nodes here that we're looking at are rolled out by Avenue Clothing. The idea is that content and commerce are separate. The two platforms will deal with different things. So when we're looking at the structure here, you'll see that the catalog isn't really that rich. You're not seeing the actual products I was navigating before. There are no shoes, there are no shirts. The reason for that is that we want the individual platforms to deal with the area that they deal with best. So for Umbraco, it's content and presentation, and for uCommerce, it's catalog, price information, all that good stuff. And so you'll not see the products in here. They will be linked in via the store that's active right now. So Umbraco will deal with presentation. Incidentally, the entire store here is driven by Umbraco. So product pages, catalog pages, the full checkout flow, it's all driven by Umbraco as you would expect, and so you have full flexibility in the way you put together your HTML. It does not have to look like this. You don't have to have 4 checkout steps. It can be 1, it could be 10, although 10 might be going overboard just a little bit. But it's all up to you is the point. Good. Checkout flow as well in here. Emails, so we use uCommerce to send out emails, but still Umbraco will deal with the emails as content because it just makes sense. This means that you don't have to learn 2 different ways of dealing with content in emails. Let's dive into uCommerce itself. It sits here at the bottom. And when we open that up, we'll get access to the main areas of uCommerce, the catalog foundation, as we call it, where you deal with all the stores, catalogs, products, all that good stuff. The order section, this is where you'll see the order management tools, where you have a workflow to deal with how orders should be fulfilled. Marketing for the merchandising portion of uCommerce, where you set up your dynamic price rules depending on channel. A little bit of reporting, not a lot. You really want to take a look at something like TrendSeam from the Site Doctor for full reporting suite, or if you're working with a backend ERP system, you might do financial reporting there. But and this is set up for extensions. You can add your own custom reports, and that's sort of the intention there. And settings, of course, to deal with all the setup. So let's dive into the individual systems here. So if I expand the stores node, you will see just that, the individual sales channels or stores in uCommerce. See, I've set up 2 here, a com site for the US market and one for Singapore for the Asian market. And the idea here is that you can set up as many of these as you want, and usually you would have a sales channel per market that you address, or if you're dealing with cross-channel where you have maybe a retail chain of stores, physical stores, you might have 1 store per physical store represented in here in uCommerce for click and collect scenarios. So imagine a scenario where you're selling your items online, but the customer selects that she wants to pick up items in store. So go to the store, pick up items. So what we can do is we can route orders placed in this one store here to another store, and thus give clerks in the particular physical brick and mortar store access to the orders that should be picked up at the counter in their particular store, but not all the other ones, of course. So just one way of using it. A store is connected to a content site. So the way Avenue Clothing here works is you'll have a content site in Umbraco like we saw before, right here. And that will be connected up with 1 or more stores via the host name here. So when you set up multiple domains on Umbraco, uCommerce will know, and you'll be able to pair up stores and content sites. And so you can swap in stores that make sense for individual markets. So if you have one content site that deals with global market or something like that, you can swap in these stores depending on a set of rules that you define. We can also integrate with Umbraco here, so we can bring in Umbraco members, so people that can log in on the front end and see order history and things like that. And one of the things we can do is we can create these custom accounts on the fly when people check out. So if they do not have an account already, ticking this little box, selecting the member group and the member type will actually cause uCommerce to create these accounts for the customer, generate a little password so they can log in after the fact, see order history and all that good stuff. The next level is the catalog level. So this is where we start to tie product and pricing and structure together. So if you recall the slide where I showed you there's a product information management system in there, the PIM is really just a big bucket of products. So every product will be in there, but with no structure. There will be no taxonomy applied to it. Well, a little, but not structural taxonomy anyway. Where structure comes in is via the catalogs, because once you start to set up catalogs here, you will start to apply structure to the PIM. And so with the catalog, the categories here, you'll start to sort of say, where does the products fit within the overall hierarchy of all the items you're selling? And a product may live across all these categories, of course. It may live across stores and catalogs as well. So you will not have to duplicate information. You will not have to set up things multiple times to be able to sell it in multiple markets or in multiple stores. It will just work by sharing it out. From the catalog perspective, there's also a couple of interesting things here to note. First thing is you can see here how we tie in multiple price lists onto the structure. So basically we're allowing the products that live in this particular catalog to be sold in euro, pounds, and US dollars. And you can swap that in and out. So again, this for B2C, this is a very common situation where you would handle multi-currency like this. It's also something that works well for B2B scenarios. I should say simple B2B scenarios. The really advanced ones, there are a number of other considerations you wanna make before you actually go down this route. But for B2C at least, this is the way to do it. And for B2B, you would have a price group, as they're called, per customer or per organization that you can swap in depending on who's logged in, for example. Up here top, you'll see languages set up. So these are actually languages that are set up in Umbraco. So Umbraco as a CMS is not really dealing with multi-language in one-to-one translations, at least. The way you deal with multi-language in Umbraco is you will set up multiple websites, individual websites that will deal with the different languages. The reasoning behind this is very good. The idea here is that if you're doing a Spanish site and a Danish site and a Norwegian one, you may not want to translate all the content. Indeed, you will most of the time you will actually see that there are many differences between the individual cultures, the blogs, whatever. They will be different things. And so, but in e-commerce, you actually have the reverse situation, because if you're selling a product in multiple languages, what you have is it is effectively the same SKU that you're selling, right? Same thing across different languages and different markets. So you're really interested in getting one-to-one translations, and that is what these tabs here are all about. You'll see them throughout the entire platform. So where Umbraco does not deal with one-to-one translations per se, uCommerce has it as a core concept throughout the entire platform because it is so important from a catalog perspective. If we dive down, we can see the product levels. I'm not going to spend too much time there. I want to make sure that we can get through all of the stuff. But I would like to point out one new feature that we added here in version 6.5, I think, something like that. And that is we've always had the ability to describe taxonomy in uCommerce, so via these definitions. So you can use those to set up which fields are relevant. So show on homepage here is a custom field that has been added to this particular definition of a shirt. Same thing for variant fields, also color size and color are custom fields that are added for this particular type of product. And so it will be different if I take a look at a shoe or a tie. But one of the new features that we introduced is the ability to inherit these definitions. So while a shoe and a shirt are two different types of products, they may share common traits that you would not be interested in actually setting up twice. So if we take a look at the definition system down here, one of the new things that we introduced is the ability to share traits between types of products. So you can see here that they sit neatly next to each other. So these are different types of products I'm selling in this particular store, and you can see here that there are different sets of fields available. So a shirt defines color size, color, show on homepage. shoe size is a completely different field for shoe, but you can see here it's shared. They share actually show on homepage. So this was created under the old model where you had to duplicate the field. So this field has effectively been created 3 times over, which is not as effective as you could be. And if you imagine systems where you have hundreds of definitions, which is something that we see, creating one field 100 times over is a little cumbersome, to say the least. So with 6.5, we introduced the ability to inherit definitions. And what you'll see on this screen here that I'm bringing up is the inheritance hierarchy of the definitions. So again, here the same definitions as the one we see here. And as you can see, it's just a flat structure because no fields are effectively shared right now. But I can go into a shirt, for example, and say, this shirt should actually inherit fields from software. Just imagine that it says say or something like that. When I do that, what I'm saying is that the shirt will actually inherit traits from the software type of product. And if I go back to my my view from before, you'll now see that there is a connection between the two. So you can see software is now supplying fields for a shirt. And you can imagine with lots of definitions in here, this becomes very handy to get a sort of an overview of how everything go together, because it can be a little cumbersome to look at it over here. But the idea is to simplify product information management in here by enabling inheritance. You can also inherit traits from multiple different types of definitions. So we could go and say, well, maybe this should share traits from both software and support. And so when I go back to my definitions, you'll see that now the shirt product is receiving fields from both software and support, all mushed up in one big definition. Okay? I think if I were to give you a sort of a very common example of how to use this, search engine optimization fields would be a good example, right? Every product would need a metadata title, a meta description, and a few keywords and things like that. Set that up one time and actually inherit those fields to all the different products. Okay? All right. Definitions is something that we use for many different things, to describe discounts, to describe categories, so you can use it for all sorts of interesting things. But it's all documented, so you can take a look at that in the platform docs that we have. Let me actually carry on to the order management system, so you can take a look at that. So the idea behind this is centered around the workflow around which orders are processed. So the idea is that, again, framework first applies. So we cannot know which framework, which order processing workflow your customer needs. And so this is completely configurable. You can go and set up how orders should pass through these different order states. So given this order state here, I would only be allowed to actually pick up 1 or 2 other order states, not all of them. Whoops, I need to click the right button. Let me just do that. There we go. So not placing orders, but actually moving the order around. So you can see here, right now we're looking at the new order status, and I can move this particular order that I checked off to completed or cancelled, and that's based on the configuration in the database. Incidentally, I clicked that button, so I might as well show that as well. You can also use these screens here to place new orders on behalf of customers. So it's very common to have situations where orders are received through multiple different channels, some of which may not be managed by uCommerce itself. Phone, fax, things of that nature. So it's handy for a salesperson to be able to go in here and place an order on behalf of a customer, and that's exactly what we're doing here. Once the order is placed, of course, you can go and change it, add items, remove items, set up shipments, add custom discounts using these screens, check out the audit trail so you can see what happened and who did what. All of that is available right in here from these screens here. There's too much stuff to go through to look at here, but just imagine setting up the full order, checking out, and you're basically good to go, like so. And we're adding some new stuff here. All this is again controlled by permission. So right now I'm logged in as an administrator, and so as a consequence I can do everything. But you may set up accounts that are limited by nature, so I may only be able to do order management, so change the order from state to state if I work in the warehouse, for example, and do fulfillment, but not actually add or remove items because it doesn't make sense for the role that I have. And there's lots and lots of opportunities for changing the permissions there. All the UIs that we're looking at here are completely customizable. So all the tabs up here that we saw both in the catalog system and also in Transaction Foundation here can be changed. The reason for that is that it's pretty common to have custom workflows that you need to deal with both from a order state point of view, but also from the actions that you want to perform. So if you need to print labels, for example, that's not part of uCommerce out of the box, but it's a very common extension that to add a little tab up here where you can actually generate a PDF with those labels on it, or something else. It's completely up to you. Once you're in there, you can do whatever you want with this. All right. To deal with business logic, and this is actually where one of the new things from 6.7 comes into play. We have, so I showed you the ability to change the state of an order, and of course you can hook into the workflow around that, the actual business logic around it, via a concept we call pipelines. A pipeline is a series of steps that are performed at a given point of in time in uCommerce. And the premise here is that there are some events that you might be interested in the sales process or in the management process here, and each of those are managed by a pipeline. The pipeline is important because it is a very natural extension point in uCommerce where you can go and hook up custom logic. And so let me just show you a few of those. Let me find my Umbraco site here, and I can show you what it looks like in the configuration. I'll be brief, don't worry about it. But I need to show you one just to give you a sense of what it means. So you can see here, these are the pipelines, and in 6.7 we actually introduced a bunch of new pipelines to deal with different things. So in versions prior to that, the basket pipeline was a common one that deals with all the calculations of keeping the basket up to date price-wise, tax-wise, and so on and so forth. But you see here, there's a new one called Add to Basket. So sometimes it's interesting to see what's happening or react to the fact that a customer is adding stuff to basket, and so you can hook into that. And there are a few other ones when we're loading a basket, when we're creating a new one, and so on and so forth. These are just opportunities that make it very simple to hook into the process that is described here. More pipelines are coming along all the time, and we're starting to see a transition towards that because it is just so easy to work with. Let me show you the checkout pipeline here just to give you a sense of what we're talking about. The idea with the checkout pipeline that I have right here is basically to define the logic around which that should happen when a basket is converted to an order. And in previous versions of uCommerce, you had to go and modify the pipeline here directly, which of course would create problems when you wanted to update uCommerce, because we would basically reset these files, removing the steps that you'd added, so you had to re-add them when you updated. So in 6.7 we added the notion of partial components, or apps as we call them. The idea is that you should be able to modify the business logic of uCommerce without actually modifying the files themselves. So upgrade scenarios would be easier. It would be simpler to figure out what the changes that you make to a given component are. And so let me show you that. So in the uCommerce folder here, there's a new folder here called Apps, and it's not that exciting because it's empty. There are no apps installed right now, but I can create a new one here, My App, and the idea is that uCommerce monitors this folder and picks up new configurations. And so I can go and create a new configuration here that will go and override, say, call it My App.config. This will enable uCommerce to pick it up. It looks for these types of files. And what I can do here is I can use those partial applications that I talked about before to, or partial components rather, to go in and define a new component. But rather than doing what we did in the old version, we will actually go in and define it. This would look like that. We would actually go in and say it's a partial component. So what happens here is I'm basically telling uCommerce, here is something that will plug into something existing in the platform. And so what I can do now is I can go and give it an ID. This is actually the ID that enables me to hook into a given pipeline, for example. So remember before it was called checkout, so I'm just reusing that same ID. So that tells uCommerce that's where we want to plug in. Parameters, this tells me what I want to plug in. So basically what are the additional steps I want to perform. Now I can go and say value, and I can go and say insert last, for example. And what this does is it basically hooks this particular component that I'm referencing right now into my step into the pipeline that we just looked at. And so just by virtue of having this field in this folder in the file system, uCommerce knows exactly what you're meaning, and you can then hook into that. And so disabling an app is just a matter of removing it altogether, or simply adding the disabled extension here, and that will also cause uCommerce to not pick it up, so you can sort of enable and disable stuff. And this is actually a system that we're using ourselves for certain versions of uCommerce to ship additional capabilities. So framework first, this is all about that, right? We're using the framework in the same way that you guys can, and so we needed this for ourselves, and we made it open so you guys can use it as well. So it just makes upgrades and extensions much easier, and also redistribution of apps. Say you're building an app for a given project, maybe you're doing a new price calculation, maybe a new tax calculation, maybe a different way of doing inventory. Well, you can just have it as an app and move it between projects as well. So it's also something that helps you reuse your codes and extensions for uCommerce across your projects, basically. So that's apps. Let's take a look at marketing. Again, there are some new capabilities in here. So marketing, of course, is all about the ability to change pricing on the fly. And as you can see, because I have two different stores defined up here, my campaigns are also subdivided into campaigns across these stores. You can have campaigns that actually span both stores. In fact, that's what I have. You'll see that some campaigns are the same. The default is actually shared across stores, but others are unique to the individual stores. So again, it's a way to differentiate the discounts that you're actually running. And let me expand one campaign for you here. The idea with the campaign here is that it groups marketing activities together. So you probably won't be running just one discount in a given time span, right? It will probably be many. And so the idea is that you can go in and say, well, this should activate and deactivate automatically, but not just for one. It would actually be automatic activation for a group of activities. This here is actually time zone based, so it will actually activate globally across multiple different time zones, same point in time, right? So it just gives you a sense here. Let's expand and take a look at this. So another change that we did here for the latest versions is that we added new criteria. So let me just talk about the model here first. So the AAA model here is one we've used for years now. And the idea was to create something that's as close to the merchandiser's world as possible. So rather than having complex rules engines and ands and ors and all that stuff, we tried to make it as simple as possible, easy to follow. And so this is the process that the customer would naturally have to go through to ultimately trigger a discount over here at the end of it. So first, advertise. It's all about letting the customer know there is a discount. So when we look into this product, it may be dashed out with a list price and a current price. Whenever we're looking at this product, it can also be other things, of course. The act is all about verifying what the customer did. So these are the criteria that the customers must satisfy to get a discount. Buy a certain item, buy above a certain threshold of value, select a certain shipping method, things of that nature. And finally, the award is what actually happens. And we're actually looking at one of the new ones here. Free gift is fairly new. It's been in there for a while now, but it is fairly new. The idea here is that one of the side effects that can happen for discounts, well, the primary one is, of course, that we adjust the values of pricing, which is the sort of the most obvious scenario. But because the system is created the way it is, you can also trigger custom order lines on the basket, right? So you can say, well, a free gift is effectively just us adding a new product to the basket for you automatically, which can be used for scenarios like you're buying this product, maybe you want to give the customer a sample of another product, whatever. It could also be used in combination with a voucher code to say, well, if you have a purchased voucher, you will get this product. So pre-ordering of tickets, books, things of that nature, right? In the acts side of things, we've added a few new targets here. So one of the things that we did is we made most of the targets here multi-targets. So you notice here that it says product. So in the old versions of uCommerce, you could select one, and if you wanted more, you actually had to go and set up a bunch, right? But the way it works today is that you can now select multiple products. So if I expand here, rather than just having the one, I can now go and say, well, I want this to actually, the customer should be able to buy one of these ones here, and that will, either of these will actually trigger the discount for you. That works for category targets as well. So again, you can target multiple categories, so every product across multiple categories. It's just a simple, you could do all this before, but it's just much faster now than it was before, because now the process around setting this up is streamlined. Another one of the new ones is the shipping methods here, and this will allow you to do free shipping on specific shipping methods, for example. So say you only want to discount shipping for express air or something like that. Well, shipping methods is the uCommerce way of saying these are the things that you can ship with. So they're configured over here in the settings area that we took a look at before. And now you can target just one of them rather than before where you would actually have to target all of them. So free shipping was either 100% off or whatever. So yeah, just a nice little addition here based on feedback from customers. There are more things you can do. Targets can go together, so you don't have to just set up one. You can actually configure multiple together. So this is an example of a bundle where you have to buy 2 different products together, and that will give you an order total discount. So classic bundle situation. Promo codes as well. So this is what we're looking at now is a raw promo code. So you need one of these 100,000 promo codes. They can be unique. They can be shared if you want to. It's all part of the configuration. And with one of these in hand, you'll get €100 in discount on the order total. So very classic promo code setup. But because the system is designed the way it is, you can also combine different types of targets, right? So the promo code can be combined with one of the product targets that we saw before, effectively creating a product-specific promo code, which is something you don't see every day. And also, you can see here that it's targeting not the order level, but actually the unit price, and it could actually also trigger a free gift if that makes sense. The point here is that even though there are not that many options to select in these drop-down lists, what you get effectively is the ability to combine all these, and not just inside the individual columns, but also across. So you get lots of opportunities for putting together interesting types of discounts. But the real beauty of this system is not so much what's out of the box. While important, I feel the most important part of that is that you can actually extend on this. You can add your own targets, you can add your own awards, so you can basically build your own discount types. And what's really cool is once you do, it will hook in and work in conjunction with all the stuff that's already there. And so you will actually, rather than just building one type of discount, you're actually building out a number of them, because once you start to combine your discount type with the ones out of the box, you actually get many more opportunities. So a good example is actually the free gift one here that we built. The idea was to support samples, for example, as I mentioned before. So buy a product, get another product. Very common. But it turned out that if we combine this with the promo code, you can actually start to do pre-ordering in a in a fairly simple way, because customers could now purchase a promo code and then use that later on when the product is available to actually trigger the product automatically free of charge on the basket, the next basket. So we're effectively creating a two-phase checkout situation where you purchase a product placeholder almost to begin with, and then later on you would actually get the real product. It's just something that works by virtue of the way we put together the overall system here. If you find a project that you feel like would fit uCommerce, do reach out to myself or Paul or somebody else here at uCommerce. Set up a Q&A session. Spend an hour with us. I promise good company. And we can talk through the project to see if there's a good fit. All right. Thank you all for sticking with me during the demo here. I really appreciate so many showing up. And any questions, please address them to myself or to Paul. We are both very happy to answer your questions. Paul's email address is right here if you need him. Thank you very much and have a great day.